never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn
Hi
around.
folks, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Another fantastic day for an interview, and today I'm really looking forward to a bit of a different interview. We often talk about the darkness from which we are growing into the light. We talk about trauma and so many things that actually make us want to run away. Yet there is another way of looking at the universe and looking at the life in its purest form, that of energy. And my guest today, Birgitta Visser, is indeed a woman who has developed an insight into energy forms, into frequencies, and is able to look at the world and look at us in with different eyes. She is indeed a modern day mystic. She is an energy healer. She is a woman who is indeed able to channel some of the energies that are out there and puts it into words that those of us who have not been bestowed with that gift can understand. So therefore, it's actually a very intriguing interview today, and I'm looking forward to talking to Birgitta. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me.
When was the first time that you felt that you had a gift to pick up maybe more than other people can pick up?
I mean, even as a child, I remember having a guide and being stuck on like a silver cord, so to speak. I was young, and many of us will have that experience. And then we grow up and we forget, um, takes over, and we go, yeah, life takes over. And I think it was only many, many, many years later when I went through severe trauma over and over and over again that I finally tuned in properly. But it wasn't, I think it wasn't until my 30s and then even 40s, because I had to heal from so much trauma. Yeah, it's like an onion, we're like an onion, and every time we peel back a layer, it's like inside, and we optimize the experience, and then we move on, and it keeps going and it keeps going. But we become more consciously aware of our experiences of life, and what we've been through, and we don't stick around. We don't mope around in our own trauma anymore. We move on because we understand the experiences. But often when we go through stuff, through hate or suffering, it's like, why is this happening to me? But it's not, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me?
Mm.
And just for the record, yeah, for me, I mean, I've been through childhood trauma. In a very short nutshell, I was abused by a friend of the family. Well, at the age of 10 or 11, I lost my dad at the age of 14, coronary heart disease. I was bullied in high school because I was very skinny and I was five. I'm 5'11", and yeah, and people copied my homework. I was so scared of guys. It was incredible. I was walking around with so much fear. I just wanted to be invisible. I was already starving myself. And I hid it very, very well. I hid it very, very well for many, many years. And that was a coping mechanism because that was something that I could control. And even later, when I know I'm a sadomasochist for sure, because I wanted to make something out of myself. So I said, I wanted to prove to people that please, turns out I wanted to become a model. Well, oh my goodness, cattle market. I was naive. I wasn't very thick-skinned. I was assaulted there as well.
Oh.
And it really knocked my confidence because nobody liked my look. It was like, oh, you look too much like Brooke Shields or Linda Evangelista. And at a certain time, it was said, oh, no, you're too old. and I just got nowhere, and it really knocked my confidence. But I mean, I traveled the world though, but I wherever I planted my feet, I would be working, whether it was hostessing, bartending, uh, promotional work, because that was my attitude. And you can plant me in the desert, but I will still be working. And that's just the way that I am. But I carried so much trauma with me, and I didn't heal from that. And that passed away in 2000. I was 25, nearly 25. I was 25. Gosh, I'm getting old now. And he died of cancer, and it's tough for me. And I rolled into I enrolled into the world of drugs for several months because my mom was leaning on me and I didn't have anybody. And you know what people can be like? It's like, put on your happy face. We don't want you to be sad. So for about 3 minutes, that was a flip switch. And I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I should just be happy. Maybe I should just follow the crowd. And that's what I did for like 3 months. And then one day to the next, I stopped cold turkey. And because I had suffered memory loss and basically my body was violated. I mean, having sex on drugs and not being aware of it is just way out of line. And that was, yeah, that for me was a wake up call.
And it's so hard because we we want to run away for from those emotions. We
Uh,
want to actually do everything to not feel the pain. And that's where the drugs come in. That's where the alcohol comes in. That's where the meaningless sex comes in. It just distracts us from the pain. So, and for those people who wonder, well, why the hell would you take drugs? That's the reason. For us in the short time frame, there, right in the here and now, those drugs, the alcohol, those behaviors, they are good. They release some tension, and I think that is so important that people understand that. But I mean, they're definitely not the greatest coping mechanisms. Been there, done that. So, uh, but having said it, it's one thing to get wake up calls like that. And obviously, there has been trauma there, and there has been a lot of darkness there.
Hmm.
Nowadays, you're a very different woman, a woman who is led by the light, and a woman who has developed a potential that many others maybe never achieve. Now, often enough, these things happen with a bang. Let's say a near-death experience or a similar experience that actually triggers something. Was there one incident that you can put your fingers on
Hmm.
where
It's,
you were triggered?
yeah, I hit rock bottom several times. Mind you, I've moved more times than my age, and I'm 50 next month. And so, but in 2009 was a turning point for me. And my ex was from the States, and he moved with me to Holland, paid for his plane ticket, and he stayed with me for several months. But I didn't know that he was a part-time crack addict. And so that's it just blew my mind. But that it needed to happen to me. I mean, we were brought into each other's lives to trigger one another, to teach one another, because we're all reflections of one another. And we signed up for this dance way before we were born. And so I signed up, to do this dance with him. And my goodness, I had never seen someone on crackheads. He pawned my stuff. He wanted to get into rehab. Everyone rejected him because he didn't have a Dutch social. And so then he landed in bed with the Dutch Crips. It got from bad to worse. And um, a long story short, in the end, my mom got me out of Holland in a space of several days. And I worked with the police to help get my ex, and they deported him and they found him and they deported him back to the US. But mind you, the beauty of that story is though that he's doing really well now. He's turned his life around. It took him several more years, but
Oh,
he's
beautiful.
doing phenomenally well for himself. And I take my hat off to him for that. And
Beautiful.
but that was a turning point for me because I really hit rock bottom and I was just in that survival mode. And even when I moved to the UK, the leader of the Crips, he threatened me. He threatened to find me and kill me. And he said, if I ever find your ex, he'll be dead in a ditch somewhere. Well, this guy is doing time now for life. But it was very frightening experience for me. And I just remember downing a whole book of programs. So I just nothing would go on. And I was a very lame time in my life. All I did was like midnight and I woke up the next day, headache gone, and I thought to myself, I cannot go on like this anymore. I mean, this is ridiculous. And so my mom said to me, why don't you go and see a counselor? Yeah, well, I did. I did. And an elderly lady, I remember exactly what she looked like. And she listened to my whole story. And then she said to me, she said, Birgitta, you're going to be fine. You're strong enough. That's great. That's great advice. What was I going to do with that? And so I hopped onto my laptop and I thought, no, I need to find something. I need to find a holistic healer. And mind you, I mean, I'd been years prior to that, I used to read tarot cards for people. And my dad was very spiritual. But I found a Reiki healer, and I always say she was my saving grace. And she really said to me, Brigitte, you've allowed yourself to be treated like a doormat all your life. And that is very true because I was afraid to hurt other people. Oh, goodness. I was so scared of what other people thought of me or how they talked about me. That's no way to real life. And so that was the start of my holistic journey. And so I studied under her for 2 years, doing level 1 and 2. I've studied EFT, the emotional freedom technique. Gosh, I studied so many healing modalities. I was like a real SpongeBob. I really wanted to understand more.
Ah,
And yeah, and that wasn't
beautiful.
the only time I went flat out on my face. Several years later, it happened again. Great. It's the universe for you.
Oh, it is hard, isn't it? And you think
Yeah.
you've healed enough and you think, wow,
No,
that's me now. And the reality is that no, the universe is saying, no, you're far from over. Because
absolutely.
if you wouldn't have that new challenge, if you wouldn't have that new obstacle, that new trauma, you wouldn't be able to get to the next step. And I think that is uh, for for many people that's so hard to understand. Yet
Yeah.
in this lifetime and potentially also in other lifetimes, we are there to learn lessons, and each
Yes.
lifetime and each episode within our lives now has got its teacher and has got the lessons to be learned. And they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Uh,
Yes.
obviously, obviously, some of us need quite a few teachers and a few lessons there, and that's the way it is. Oh
Yeah.
goodness. So, but it's one thing to go into a course and learning a new technique, um, opening yourself up, expanding your horizon. That is all quite pretty, but that is one thing. So I
Yeah.
can easily learn how to hypnotize, but then to take that to the next level and actually become a recipient of energy messages. Now that's something very different. How did that happen?
Oh, it didn't happen overnight. But I think, well, I mean, yes, I was studying a lot, of course. And I was eventually, when I moved to St. Petersburg in 2014, I became a Reiki master and I started to teach because I just felt like, this is my next step. I want to teach. So I went out there and I gave workshops in meditative art. I had seen somebody do that in Holland. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a meditation teacher. I love art. I'm going to do the same thing. It was great. These workshops were busy. I did a pendulum workshop, but at that time, I'd met someone who was a wrecking ball in my life, quite literally.
You have got really sort of a very good choice there, isn't it? Yes. Let's see. I get myself onto my feet, and now let me find another Mr. Wrong. And
I did, seriously. And it was but brilliant. Again, a brilliant teacher. I look back on it, he's doing very well. I'm not in touch with him anymore, but it's okay. And he suffered from depression. He lost his mother, and he never lost anyone in his life. So he suffered from depression because of that, and he had a reckless, and he refused to pay that because he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't do anything wrong. So then eventually that piled up, and I was a warrant out for his arrest, which I didn't even know. The guy was like a dog with a bone. It was like he would not leave me alone. He moved from an hour away to 2 doors down from the house that I bought. And I felt like a prisoner in my own home. I mean, it was horrific. I mean, I was starving myself, working like crazy because I also had to pay his bills because he wasn't working. And I had to find him jobs and send him so many. And it was like, finally he did get one, but he just got wasted all the time, and I realized there's one thing I do realize in all of this is in fact that we always try to mold someone to our liking. We want to change them, we want to save them. Oh, yes, I'm a savior. I'm a super caped hero. I'm here to save you from yourself. Well, absolutely not. My guides were up there going, yeah, Birgitta, what are you doing? What are you doing? How about you work on yourself and you save yourself? Stop with these refurbishment projects and look at your own life. What are you doing? You're beating yourself up in the boxing ring. You're black and blue. And it was just, I mean, being a prisoner in your own home, he had my keys. He refused to return them because he's like, he was threatening me with immigration, which was something I was trying to take care of. And I just didn't even dare to go to the police. And, for me to work 7 days a week, just because I had my own bills and I had to take care of him, it's ridiculous. I should have just let him rot and let him fall. But there were so many things that happened. You're going to laugh at this. And it's like he needed money for a bus, for the bus. And my mom had given me this piggy bank where you needed to smash it, right, in order to get the money out. So I was really, really mad. And I'm like, here's your bus money. Boom, I smacked it. Bomb, all the coins there. Took it. So these are just a few examples, but at some point I sold my home to get away from him. I sold my home, and then he was evicted from his home. And guess what he said? Brigitte, will you please pay the deposit for me on my studio? I promise that you will get it back. Sign the contract. Did I get it back ever? No, no. But I moved home and I did not want to move, but I did. And then I found another place, but it was a bit of a money pit, a hellhole. And eventually I moved in 6 months later. But guess what? I was staying in a motel for about 6 months. And it was on St. Pete Beach. It was opposite were crack. I mean, not crack. They were drug addicts, and my studio was right on the side of a kitchen from a bar, so I could see the kitchen. And it was just, I mean, the police were around every single night nearly because across the road there was prostitution going on. And I remember just being there and just getting on with my life. But there were times that I mean, there were times where I was just crying on the floor. I was so exasperated. I was so pressed, so to speak. You could call it depression. I never labeled it like that, but I was just screaming at the universe, saying, I cannot go on like this anymore. I don't want to go on like this anymore. I said, I look at people around me. Oh, look how happy they are. And look what I've got. nothing, because I felt like a complete failure, absolutely. And it really, it took an extraordinary experience whereby my ex's place was tenanted, and he said to the landlord, oh, I can stay with my ex-girlfriend. Excuse me? And so I ended up paying for a hotel for him and his two cats. And then when the tenting was not done yet, I I wasn't going to pay the hotel anymore. So he came to mine, but I was like freaking out. I had had enough, totally enough. And I was screaming in the car. I was going through every red light. I was speeding so hard. I didn't care if I lived or died at that point. I was too far gone. And I, I have no idea how a cop didn't stop me. And I made it back home. And that night, I mean, the tenting was gone and he went back home, but he realized he'd gone too far. And at that point, where I'd been screaming at the universe threw me a little breadcrumb. Here, Brigitte, see if you're going to see this. And I did. I did. And it was in the form of combo healing, which is shamanic frog medicine. And that was another start of my, continued healing journey. And it really made me realize many, many things. It's so physical, this shamanic frog healing, because you purge and purge, and it comes out everywhere. You run to the toilet, and the shaman just goes with you. I mean, I didn't really care. I mean, I brought a change of underwear with me, but it was very, very powerful to me. And I made a whole bucket list of things that I wanted to do. Like go skydiving because I'm super scared of heights. And so I did it anyway. I didn't pee in my pants, but I was glad when I hit the ground again. I started running for charity. I promised my stepdad when he crossed over from cancer, I promised that I would do it. Well, I was running in my mind for like 16 years until I finally did it. And then my guys kind of kicked me out of my house and they're saying, you're going to that fair. And I did. And that's where I met my former mentor. It was like a not really a psychic fair, there were healers and everything else. But I met my former mentor there, and she's an Akashic record healer. And Akashic record healer, for those that don't know it, it's all about past lives. And I learned so much about why he was in my life and making my life miserable because he did it in a past life too. He actually killed me. He poisoned me with an arsenic, and because I was very well off, and under the guise of healing me, he poisoned me over several months and I died. And it's really funny because in this lifetime, when I met him, I was super, super skinny. I couldn't hold in any food. I was throwing up all the time. I was still working, but the doctors couldn't figure out what it was. And one of them thought it might be an IBS strain. I couldn't even hold in a cup of tea. It was horrific for me, horrific. And I didn't tell her that. I mean, it had already gotten better, but so that's what she said. That's that karma, that residue that you carried over from that lifetime to this lifetime, which was really, really interesting. But guess what? After that, the energy changed completely. I could breathe. I could start to breathe. And under her, I learned how to channel. I went to one of her workshops. And just because I taught and I attuned people, to Reiki, it wasn't really I mean, I enjoyed it, but I knew there was more. And so when I did that workshop, and she did this exercise, and anybody can do this. Yeah, we all have our unwrapped gifts within ourselves. And she said the way she started was she took a pad and pen, and she just said to the universe, I'm open and ready to receive, and just started writing. So um, when I went home, I did that same exact thing. Now my mind was shot to hell already. So I didn't think, I just wrote. And it was very powerful because when I read it back, it was in Old English. Old English prose, and I was just elated. And yeah, I started doing it every single day,
Yeah.
and it was very self-healing for me.
Wow. Wow. There will be people out there who are thinking, okay, who has Stephan brought onto his show? She has clearly lost her marbles. Okay, for those of you who are in that belief system, I there is a beautiful little study out there where rats were put in a cage, and part of the cage was metal and was electrified, and the researchers put cherry flavor wafted that through the cage, and every time the
Yeah.
cherry flavor came, they gave electricity to the rats, and the rats very soon
Oh,
realized, oh shit, cherry flavor not good. So rats do what rats do: have a little party, have a little bit, go in, go out, and little new rats came along. These new rats were put into the same cages, this time without electricity. And these new rats, so the children of the rats that were exposed to the cherry flavor, these children, having never been exposed to the cherry flavor, got the cherry flavor and immediately became jitterish, trying to run away because they expected the
right.
pain. So here you are. Explain that to me. So we know that certain things are laid down into our genes, are handed down to in the generations. So if you talk about intergenerational trauma, there are certainly models for that. And is certainly I've read Brian Wise's book, Many Masters, um, and that is a beautiful book written by a very esteemed psychiatrist who had a patient who he took through regression into previous lifetimes, and many of her anxieties, many of her pains, many of her problems were cured by addressing and accepting the trauma that was done previously to her in other
Yes.
lifetimes. So it's amazing. There's an amazing body of evidence out there. And even you guys listening to it, you might have experienced something similar. Because there are people out there who have never been to Italy, to Rome, and suddenly walk down a road and say, okay, behind that next corner, there is a church. And in
Yeah.
that church, there is actually a secret room. And I'm really getting quite jittery because I don't want to go there. I've been there before. Um, how the hell? Or children who suddenly are able to talk a language that they have never been exposed to. There are so many examples. So, guys, actually get goosebumps just thinking about that. So, there's so much more out there than we know and accept in our busy 2024 life, because we have no longer got used to be with us, used to believe in a something bigger than us, and something that doesn't come with an app. So so
Yeah.
I just needed to
Yeah.
say that, okay, so that we're all on the same uh, playing,
Well
sing
said.
from the
Well
same.
said.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Wow. Is that not scary though? I have never had such experiences. I would be
No,
happy
it's
to expose myself to it. But when suddenly there are messages floating from somewhere to you, I mean, what makes a difference to schizophrenia and a pathological state where you hear voices that tell you to kill other people? How do you distinguish the
oh
voices
well
of,
that yeah. It's like really vast. No, these days I know who I'm talking to, or I can just call upon them. That's why I call myself a bit of a bike messenger, being Dutch. You know,
hmm,
I just go to wherever's got like a message to convey, write it down,
yeah,
deliver it. That's how it works. But I didn't know that in the beginning. I needed to discern that. I wanted to discern that for people. And so that takes practice. Yes, I reside on the astral planes a lot at night, so I see a lot of what goes on. And I like it out there sometimes. I don't always remember, but a lot of the times when
Mm,
I do, it's like, it's amazing. Yes, and I'm a weirdo and I'm a freak, and that's okay. But I'm
mm,
happy being me
mm,
these days. I really, really am. Then there's so much more to life when we realize, what if we turned the world inside out? Oh my goodness, what would come falling out?
mm.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful way that you're saying that. And I guess one of the ways that we can actually maybe discern what is a message from the masters or from
Yep.
other frequencies out there is the nature of the message. Because to everyone I've spoken who has got a gift like you, everything I've read, these messages are always positive. These messages are always there to lift us up and challenge us to create a better humanity, question us with regards to wars, with regards to other bad decisions. And that seems to be the overall resounding commonality between all the people that I've spoken to and had the privilege of listening to. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree. I will give for those actually listening. So when you want to start doing this and you've got a pack of cards, whether it's the angels, the ascended masters, gods and deities, I don't care which one. You just pick a pack, you shake not shake the deck, you shuffle the deck, and you just pick a card. And no cheating, do not go to Google, right? Just sit there with the card, whoever you've got, and say, have you got a message for me? Can you tell me something about you? And then you just sit there. And again, when you start out, just make sure you put yourself in a blue bubble of protection and say you're open and ready to receive and just start writing. Don't think, just write whatever comes. And it doesn't matter if it's just a sentence or two sentences. If you do this every single day, you will start to get better at it because you're fine tuning your frequency. It's like going to the gym. The first time you go, it's tough, but when you keep
Mm.
when you keep going, you become better at it, and you tone yourself. It's the same
Beautiful.
thing. It works the same way. And I like to meditate in the morning and in the evening because that gives me clarity. I like to do my breathing exercises because that's important too. There's one thing that my dad always used to say. He's like, your body is a temple, treat it as such. And we don't. We don't treat it. We treat it with such disrespect. We take our bodies for granted.
Yeah.
We chuck junk at it. And it's like, I mean, it's terrible what we throw at our bodies and how we treat our bodies when our body is the home of our soul, and it's like an antenna. We can do so much with it, and yet we've just been dumped down. We walk around like little zombies on this planet.
We are. And then this is a privilege. And the problem is many of us don't stop and don't question ourselves. We run around
Mm.
with core beliefs that are so warped with trauma that is overshadowing any kind of possibility to grow. So many of us will be blinded. We are like horses with blinkers on, with all the trauma and
Yes.
with all the kind of things. Even if the message is there, trying to get in, because there's so much in our way, and we keep ourselves so busy, and we believe more some influencers or the Kardashians or whoever is yeah, exactly. We do not, we are rather losing ourselves in Instagram rather than losing ourselves in ourselves. The
Yes, absolutely.
I
And I
love it.
call that, sorry, yeah, no, good point. I'm not a big social media buff. When I need to use it, I will use it, but it's people are are taught to live a certain way and be a certain way rather than being themselves. Oh, I need to look like that person. Oh, look at this. This will help me. Well, everything starts from within. And that's the point where it's so warped. Yeah, we are love at our core essence. That is what we are. And we've lost that along the way because of the way that we were raised, the environment that we're in, everything that is bombarded into us, and all this consumerism, this materialism, and it's like that's very alien to me. But we live with all this fear within ourselves, right? Fear is a barrier within our mind. We live with all these mind labels that we've slapped upon our minds, like guilt, fear, bitterness. We judge people. It is anger. Why? I mean, wow. What would happen if we were to look at ourselves, at our lives, and rather than pointing the fingers at others, blaming others for our misery of what's happened to us, here's a mirror. Well, why are you doing this to me? Oh, yeah, well, you're pointing at yourself, aren't you? So why don't you take accountability for your life and take responsibility and change your thinking? It is quantum physics. Change your thinking to change your life because it's a mindset. Yeah. Healing starts within. It all starts with us. We have to take that first step. And if we take that first step, the universe will come, will also take that first step towards us. And we're energy. We can change everything.
Mm.
And that's the thing about alchemy. That's why I love alchemy. It's turning the heaviness that led the heaviness of our experiences, alchemizing that, healing ourselves, accepting what has happened, learning to forgive ourselves, hugging it out with ourselves, as I always say, and letting that go. And we come to that state of that gold, or becoming more enlightened within ourselves because we've understood the experience. And the more we understand our experiences and the more we alchemize these and heal up, the more we understand what life is all about. But people just remain where they are, stuck in the mud or stuck in that quicksand, going, help, help, you put me there. No, 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 no. You put yourself there. What are you going to do about it? It's like if I called up on Archangel Michael, for instance, yeah, talks about fear. What do you think he does? Oh, he's going to pick you up. Oh, heck no. He shoves your face straight into your fears because you have to walk through the darkness in order to understand the light. It's not rocket science.
Heavy words, because what you're saying there is really you're challenging us to practice extreme ownership. You're actually
Yes.
challenging us to not just be resentful and angry towards others. Look what you did to me. But so if you were now to apply those principles to your own life, how do
Mm.
you take ownership with your choices of men? How do you take ownership with regards to those times when maybe your coping mechanisms were not so great and not congruent with the life that you're living now?
Oh, trust me, in the past, I was my own worst enemy. Oh gosh, I was. But I had to learn, didn't I? I had to really learn to take responsibility for my life. That didn't come overnight.
Mm.
That happens through our experiences. But if you are going through something right now, and if you are deflecting rather than reflecting, then you need to ask yourself why. We go through experiences, and you need to take a step back, take a breather, and ask yourself, hey, you know what? Why am I actually going through this? What is it teaching me? Why is this person triggering me?
Um,
What is it that I actually need to work on?
love it.
That's how I do it these days. Yeah, no, not in the past. I was like the big bad wolf, huffing and puffing, and blowing that house down.
Do you still get angry? How are you in the traffic?
Oh, nothing. Oh, my mother is terrible. Oh my gosh, it's just like seriously, mom, it's okay. It doesn't matter. And that was in the UK. Now I don't care. I mean, if somebody's slow before me, well, it's all right. I'll get to my destination 2 minutes later, right?
Okay. And that's beautiful. When you actually really can live your life with that serenity. I find myself often in many situations serene, and then I get in the car. I don't know what happens there. That still is my weak spot. I've worked a lot on my temper, and I certainly worked a lot on the way I view the world and
Mm.
the conscious choices I make. I live with intention, and I love that state. Still, there are some weaknesses that I still need to work on. I would like to figure out where that comes from, and I have no idea, and I don't think I will ever find out. But we all have our weaknesses. Therefore, we
We
are
do.
on this journey, and therefore we get to work on ourselves, and maybe by us changing ourselves towards better humans, maybe we can be of better, of more benefit to others. Maybe we can become the
Absolutely.
leader
Yes.
that others want us to be.
We're here
How?
to inspire one another.
Mm,
Remember, we're here to
mm,
empower one another.
yeah,
And as Archangel Michael always says to me, we're here to walk one another home to the light of ourselves.
beautiful. How do you see your mission? How do you see, maybe not your mission? I mean, that is ego talking. How do you see the messages that are coming down from the universe? Let's call it like that, because you obviously talk about a number of sources of information that you sort of
Yep.
download. Um, what message do these, or what vehicles are suggested that you use in order to spread the word that we really shouldn't be assholes? We should actually be nice to each other and try not to kill each other. I just put it a bit in modern language here. I'm sure they
Yeah,
say,
absolutely.
do they
Absolutely.
say, hey, don't be an asshole? That would be actually a very real message. But I think they speak more eloquent, isn't it?
You know, just for the record, before I get into that, governments, right? When we split up the word, it comes from Latin. I think it's governor and mentee, and it means mind control. Boom, there you have it.
Okay.
That's not rocket science either. Everything is in the word lingo. But
Yeah.
I use to get my messages across, whether people come to me for one-to-ones, I put it in books. I put my messages in books. And it was not like, oh, hey, I wanted to write a book. It's like, hey, you know what? You're going to sit down right now and you're going to start writing. I'm like, yeah, but I just started a new job. See, the
Right.
time. And so the messages that I've conveyed, they're not for me, they're for humanity. And whoever comes across it, it's like a
Yeah.
piece of the puzzle to to stir something within your soul, like a deep memory, and to help you wake up. Because every piece of everyone that's has a story to tell has like a little piece of the puzzle to helping you along your way. That's how I see it. Um, and yeah, I mean, I still have my corporate job for now, but like I said before, we're all here to empower and inspire one another. And whichever avenue you take, it doesn't really matter. I love doing the podcast, getting that message across. I love writing. So yeah. And eventually I want to be speaking on stage, and I will.
Oh, beautiful. That's beautiful. And there are many um, other people out there who are channeling similar messages. And there is, I think, a body of evidence out there that this is not just a wave of insanity that is somehow running through the population, but actually that there is a message waiting to be heard out there. And it is a message that is beautiful. Intriguingly, if you were to look at near-death experiences, and I've had some,
Mhm.
I had Greg Shushan on my show who wrote books about that subject, and we discussed it there. Ultimately, when it comes to you leaving this earth for a little bit and then
Yep.
to come back, often enough people recognize um, these energy beings in a form that makes sense to them. So that could be
Mhm.
Jesus Christ if you are in the Christian faith. This could be very much a different deity. This could be very much maybe a family member or just a
Yes.
warmth of things like that. So I think those of you who are thinking, "Oh well, that's a heap of baloney," but I believe in Jesus Christ. I think we are talking pretty much, yeah, maybe the same, just a little bit different dressing, window dressing. But I think there's a
Yep.
message of good out there waiting to be heard and waiting to be shouted out from the rooftops. And it's amazing that you found the strength, that you found the light literally through the darkness. And it's wonderful to
Yeah.
see that. Birgitta, you're an amazing woman there. Thank you for being so authentic. Like it or lump it, here you are spreading the word. And I find that amazing. I find you awesome there to that you're so open. And I hope that your message gets heard. And I hope that
Yep.
with that message also comes a feeling of serenity and then a feeling of peace over other souls. And I think that is the way how we can spread the message, how we can spread, I think, the goodness over humans. And ultimately, we
Yep.
all, it doesn't matter which kind of color or
Nope.
imaginary friend you believe in or whatever, we all are the same. We all
We are.
enjoy beautiful things like being together, community, enjoying
Yep.
food, song. There's so many things that we all are the same. My goodness.
Yes.
Oh, Birgitta, you're an amazing woman. If people want to know more about you, where can they find you?
They can find me on my website, powersoulhealing.com,
Mm,
my YouTube channel, which is Power Soul Healing, and my Instagram, which is Universal Light Warriors.
beautiful.
Yes, that's where they can find me.
All the information is down there in the links of the YouTube video and of the podcast. Guys, check Birgitta out. It is a beautiful example of being your authentic self. And by being so, you really leave a legacy and you really actually make the world a better place. And that's what my show is all about. And that's what our connections are all about. So thank you so much for coming here onto my show today. For those of you who are not so, who are thinking, how the hell does he look like today? We have had so many technical issues here to start off with. Yet the universe meant for us to connect, the universe meant for us to come together to actually bring out the message and share the news. So therefore, sometimes, even if there are obstacles, they are meant to be overcome. And perfection is really one of the biggest obstacles that we can put into our lives. So, 80% of success is showing up. And I think if we can just show up for ourselves and start being open, authentic, and live with intention, then maybe you guys also will learn how to be more open to yourself and maybe to the forces that are out there that we have not yet experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful, beautifully said. And I just want to say one more thing to that is, happiness, the saying happiness is an inside job. It really is. We cultivate joy from within. Everything comes from the wells, from deep within ourselves, because that's where we carry our pearls of wisdom. Yeah. Our lives should happen from the inside out, not the outside in. We look for happiness outside of ourselves. And that's like that butterfly that is eluding us. So stop, take a pause, and turn within, because ultimately the journey to a better life starts from within. So wherever you are at this point in your life, just be in acceptance of that in this very, very moment, and take the necessary steps to make these changes within your lives. Because I can tell you this, wherever you are right now, in 6 months' time, when you do the work, you look back and you say, you know what? You're right. My life is so much better now. But it all starts with you. And remember, it doesn't matter what other people think of you. It matters what you think of you and how you feel about yourself. So always be you, not who the world wants you to be.
I couldn't have said it better. Birgitta, you're an amazing woman. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
Thank you very, very much for having me. I enjoyed it.
And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with intention. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up.